So there's a lot of good things in Utah. I think Salt Lake City is a beautiful city. I've never been there. I'd really love to go. I think Utah is just a beautiful area in general. Uh, Their fans are a little bit more to be desired from in terms of a respect standpoint. But, I mean, you can go either way on that. And some of the basketball down there in Utah is beautiful as well. The play from Donovan Mitchell this year has been great. Mike Conley has been, his usual self. Bojan Bogdanovic is a good role player. Royce O'Neal is a really good role player. Jordan Clarkson is one of the best six men in the NBA. If Tyler Hero wasn't having the type of season he's having, I think Jordan Clarkson would be up there again for sixth man of the year. In general, the Utah Jazz are a really good team. And they're a lot like what the Portland Trailblazers were up until this year. And that's just a team that you can count on to be in the playoffs. In a couple of years, you're going to say, if a few things bounce right, this team could be playing in the Western Conference Finals or even the NBA Finals. Now, I bring that up because as a Portland Trailblazers fan, I always knew that team wasn't making the finals. And it's not just because I saw Charles Barkley say that team was going to make the finals that I knew they weren't. It's because that defense was so bad. They had a couple of specialists between Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, and I don't want to just label them specialists. I just want to label them as they're two guys that are really good at what they do, which is scoring offensively. They are getting their teammates involved. They are getting the ball up and down the court. Those two guys combined not only were one of the best backcourts in the NBA at the time, but one of the best backcourts in NBA history because of how they pushed each other and the rest of their team up with them. That team should have never made the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago when they did. The difference with this Utah Jazz team is their specialist in Rudy Gobert is the weakest link offensively because his best attribute is throwing his body into the other team's players. And you look at what he does from every aspect of the floor. And this is the part about Ben Simmons that I just never agreed with him having to take three-point shots. Why don't we say the same thing about Rudy Gobert? Because not only do we disrespect Ben Simmons and we egg Ben Simmons because of the fact that he doesn't shoot three-point shots or he can't shoot free throws or he passes out of certain situations, this is exactly what Rudy Gobert does every single time. He will never shoot a three. He will never shoot a mid-range shot. If he does, it's going to be brick city. He's terrible from the free throw line. He passes out of situations around the rim where he's being defended by someone almost a foot shorter than him. Like I said, his best attribute on the offensive side of the ball is throwing his body into the other team's guards. So now what do you have in Utah? You got a 46-32 team. You got a team that if Minnesota turns it on over these last 6 games, Denver will be sitting in the play-in tournament. And I don't like them in a matchup against the LA Clippers. We saw what happened the other night when they gave up a 25-point lead to Paul George and that Clippers team. And if they play one of either New Orleans, San Antonio, or the LA Lakers, especially if they play the LA Lakers, I do not like the Utah Jazz in that matchup. Just off the fact that they have a way to be schemed against. Whoever's guarding Rudy Gobert is not going to be guarding Rudy Gobert. They're going to be sitting in the paint, especially if it's Anthony Davis. He's going to be sitting in the paint, waiting for Donovan Mitchell or Mike Conley to come into the paint. If there's a Rudy Gobert screen, it's an automatic switch. Whoever is guarding the guard, whether it's Malik Monk or whether it's Austin Reeves or whether it's LeBron, it's okay. Sit and hold your ground as much as possible. Draw some charges against Rudy Gobert because he's so uncoordinated from a ball handling and playmaking standpoint. You're probably going to foul Rudy Gobert out, and he's going to be a 0 for the entire game because he's that bad offensively. Now you're the Utah Jazz. You're sitting at home. You were supposed to be one of the teams competing for the Western Conference Finals, and you're not even out before the first round. You're out in the play-in tournament. So what do you do if you're the Utah Jazz? Well, you're kind of backed into a corner because not only do you pay Rudy Gobert $35 million, which is more than any other player on your roster, you're paying him $38 million next year when he's 30, $41 million at the age of 31, basically $44 million at 32, and $46.5 million as a player option in 25-26 when he's 33 years old. Just a heads up, I think he probably has already picked up that player option. So do you trade Rudy Gobert? Well, who's trading for Rudy Gobert? Because not only do you pay him more than anybody else on your roster if you're the Utah Jazz, he is paid more than any other center in the NBA. More than Embiid, more than Jokic, more than Adebayo, more than Jonas Valanciunas, more than anybody that plays center in the NBA. And he does less than all of those guys. He does less than all of them. And yes, he's won Defensive Player of the Year a couple times, and he's in the running again this year. But none of the other Defensive Player of the Year candidates give him the same respect that they give themselves, because those guys, and I would say that people around the NBA are starting to say the same things, Rudy Gobert cannot do anything that Marcus Smart does from a standpoint of being able to guard every single guard he defends, some of the best guards in the NBA. But when he switches on to big men, he holds up well. Rudy Gobert doesn't hold up well against guards. Rudy Gobert barely holds up well against centers that are actually good on the offensive side of the ball. So you have all of that. You pay Rudy Gobert more than almost every single player in the NBA. There's only 15 guys in the NBA right now that make more money than Rudy Gobert. And that number is going to be slimmer and slimmer by the time he's 33 and he has that $46.5 million player option. So you're like, wow, we have Rudy Gobert. Not only can we not win with him, nobody else is going to try to trade for him and win with him. If you're the Utah Jazz, I mean, you're so backed into a corner. You have to trade Donovan Mitchell and you have to trade Mike Conley. Because obviously the situation isn't working between those three. I think Donovan Mitchell, going back to the bubble year when Rudy Gobert had that interview moment where he touched everybody's phone right before he tested positive for COVID and right before the league shut down, I think there's still bad blood between those guys. And I don't mean bad blood like Donovan Mitchell hates Rudy Gobert and just I think Donovan Mitchell understands Rudy Gobert has not been a positive for this organization. He's been about a neutral. He hasn't been a negative. He hasn't been a positive. He's been a neutral player. And if you want to win, you can't just have a team of neutral players, especially if you want to pay him $35 million. Again, more than any other center in the NBA, more than any other player on your team. And that's the situation that Utah is kind of stuck in right now. They're stuck in neutral. They're stuck as being a 46-48 win team, a team that could lose in the play-in tournament, and a team that's going to have to say goodbye to their star players because they are easier to trade than it is to trade Rudy Gobert. I'm sorry, Utah. I hate saying it, but you're going to have to say goodbye to Donovan Mitchell before you even get to say goodbye to Rudy Gobert. And this team's probably going to be tanking over the next few years because of this situation. And again, I'm sorry, Utah Jazz fans, but this is what happens when you stick up for specialists who are below average at every single other category of basketball. You have to be a basketball player. You cannot be a defender in the NBA anymore. You cannot be a rebounder. You cannot be a shot blocker. You cannot be a rim protector anymore. You have to be a basketball player. And Rudy Gobert has not become that yet. He's 30 years old, so it's what more is he going to add to his game? If he just all of a sudden starts shooting threes at a 30%, even 30% clip, mid-ranges at a 45% clip, this team goes so much farther. And this is why I hate the Ben Simmons thing, is because we've seen it with Rudy Gobert get to 30 years old and nothing has changed with Rudy Gobert. This is his 9th. He's been in the league 9 years. He's 30 years old and he's changed nothing about his game. And he's getting paid $35 million because of it. It's just really bad for Utah, and I keep saying it, but I'm sorry. You guys are going to have to trade Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley before you even get to trade Rudy Gobert. And this team's going to be really bad for the next few years. And again, I'm sorry, Utah Jazz fans.